It was a foggy Tuesday morning in New York City when Ivanka Trump, the poised and glamorous elder daughter of the sitting President Donald J. Trump, slipped into a nondescript salon in Brooklyn. The mission? To shed her polished public image and step into the shoes of an average American worker at one of her family's most iconic properties, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. The decision wasn't a stunt for publicity. Ivanka had grown restless in Washington's echo chambers and yearned for a ground-level look at how everyday Americans, the ones her family claimed to champion, really lived and worked. After reading a series of anonymous online reviews criticizing work conditions at Trump Tower, she needed to see it for herself. Unfiltered, uncensored. Inside the salon, two stylists buzzed around her, chatting excitedly but unaware of their client's true identity. Her long blonde hair was dyed to a soft brunette with caramel highlights, and layers were added to change her signature style. She swapped her designer wardrobe for basic jeans, a faded black turtleneck, and cheap sneakers from a local outlet. Her alias, Erin Wallace, a 34-year-old single mother from Pennsylvania looking for work to support her son. A new identity card was created. A simple backstory was rehearsed. No one at the tower would know she was Ivanka Trump. By Wednesday morning, she stood outside Trump Tower, clutching her application papers in a trembling hand. The golden doors reflected the bustling street behind her, but Ivanka only saw the unknown ahead. She inhaled deeply and stepped inside. She was directed to the housekeeping department, where new hires were most urgently needed. The manager, a blunt, overworked man in his 50s named Rick Delgado, barely looked up as he handed her a set of uniforms and a locker key. Training starts in 10. Hope you're not squeamish. Floors 12 to 16 have back-to-back guest checkouts. He grunted, already moving on to his phone. Ivanka followed a young woman with bright pink nails and earbuds dangling from her ears. I'm Tammy. Stick with me today. Rule 1. Don't speak unless spoken to. Rule 2. If you see something gross, just deal with it. Ain't no fairy godmothers here. Tammy clearly had no idea who Erin really was. The work was grueling. The carpets were thick with crumbs, bedsheets stained, and minibars ransacked by high-paying guests with little regard for the help. Ivanka scrubbed toilets, changed sheets, and sprayed lemon-scented disinfectant with aching fingers. No one treated her differently. If anything, she was invisible. By noon, her uniform clung with sweat, and her feet screamed from the unfamiliar pressure of long-standing shifts. Tammy handed her a banana and a protein bar during their break in the service hallway. So, you married or what? Tammy asked between bites. No, just me and my kid, Ivanka said, sticking to her story. Tammy nodded. Same. Got a little girl. Her dad's a loser. I work doubles to keep her in daycare. Ivanka nodded silently, struck by how much Tammy had in common with millions of mothers across the country, struggling, surviving, and invisible to the powerful. No speeches. No spin. Just hard, raw reality. By the end of her first day, Ivanka felt like her back might snap in two. Yet, what shocked her most wasn't the dirt or the hours, it was the way workers talked about the Trumps. Jokes about entitled kids, complaints about frozen wages, rumors of pending layoffs. Tammy rolled her eyes as they passed a framed photo of Ivanka in a white pantsuit. She's gorgeous, sure, but she don't know crap about us. Bet she ain't scrubbed a toilet in her life. Ivanka forced a chuckle and kept walking. Inside, though, something stirred. She was beginning to see the cracks in the empire. By her third day working as Erin Wallace, Ivanka had developed calluses on her hands and a new understanding of what it meant to live paycheck to paycheck. She woke at 5:30 a.m. in a modest Airbnb rental in Queens. Gone were the luxurious duvets and personal chefs. She made instant coffee on a portable kettle, packed a sandwich, and caught the subway just like tens of thousands of working New Yorkers. No one recognized her beneath the ball cap, tired eyes, and bargain store clothes. At Trump Tower, her duties grew more intense. She rotated between guest rooms, laundry services, and the back corridors no guest ever saw. She learned quickly that while the tower gleamed in gold and glass on the outside, the backstage was riddled with problems, outdated equipment, broken elevators, pest complaints, and supervisors who barked at workers like drill sergeants. Still, Ivanka wasn't treated with malice. She was simply ignored. During lunch in the staff break room, the workers often vented, sometimes about management, sometimes about the unfair tips, sometimes about their home lives. But there was a recurring theme, resentment toward the Trump brand itself. They say they care about American workers, said Raj, a janitor who had been there since 2005. But the only time we see their faces is on TV or when they come here with cameras. We're good for photo ops, not policy. Ivanka chewed slowly, absorbing each comment like a blow to the chest. Want to know the last time we got a raise? Tammy asked. 4 years ago. Right before the election. Coincidence? I don't think so. It became clear to Ivanka that beneath the surface of loyalty and grandeur, there was quiet unrest brewing among the very people who kept the place running. These weren't radicals. These were hard-working Americans who felt unseen and unheard. That Friday, Rick, their grumpy supervisor, stormed into the laundry area. A high-profile guest had complained about a musty smell in a robe. Heads turned, but it was Aaron he pointed to. You were on robe duty yesterday, right? Yes, she stammered, surprised by the aggression. You cost us a 5-star review. What part of steam every robe do you not understand? You're on restroom cleanup now. Lower floors. Let's see if you can handle that. The entire room fell silent. Tammy looked like she wanted to intervene but hesitated. Ivanka lowered her head and nodded. For the next 4 hours, she was scrubbing employee restrooms in the tower's underground levels. Dimly lit, unventilated, and often forgotten, these facilities were used by delivery personnel and maintenance staff, the lowest rung in the building's social hierarchy. Alone in the grime, Ivanka felt her throat tighten. Not because of the smell, she could handle that now, but because for the first time she understood humiliation. It wasn't just being yelled at. It was being dismissed, assumed to be unworthy of respect. Treated as an object, not a person. That night, she sat at her small table back in Queens and opened a notebook. She began jotting down every experience, the overworked staff, the faulty equipment, the unspoken stories, the casual dismissals. And the more she wrote, the angrier she became. Not at the workers. Not even at Rick. But at herself for being so far removed, for assuming speeches and charity events were enough. For forgetting what real work and real struggle looked like. By Sunday, Ivanka decided she would stay for 1 more week. She needed to go deeper. She had heard rumors about how security guards were treated, how the night shift faced worse conditions. She wanted to see it all, because once she came out of disguise, things were going to change. But she had no idea just how much was about to be revealed. By Monday evening, Ivanka had already done what no one in Trump Tower's corporate management had even considered in years, listened. But what she overheard in the employee locker room that night made her blood run cold. 2 security guards, both on break, leaned against the lockers near hers. They didn't notice Aaron. No one really paid attention to housekeepers, and their conversation wasn't meant to reach someone like Ivanka Trump. I heard building management is quietly cutting overnight staff, one of them muttered. Fewer guards. More cameras. They say it saves money. Cameras can't stop a guy with a gun, you know, the other replied. Just yesterday some drunk tourist wandered up from the service stairwell. What if that was someone dangerous? Ivanka froze mid-step. Cutting security? In Trump Tower? One of the most recognizable landmarks in New York City? She quickly turned and left the room before they could see the shock on her face. That night, she requested a switch to the overnight cleaning shift, claiming she had childcare during the day. Rick shrugged and signed her up. No one ever volunteered for the graveyard shift. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., she worked alongside Marco, a wiry Cuban immigrant in his 60s who had been cleaning Trump Tower for over 20 years. With a slight limp and permanently stained hands, Marco shuffled slowly from one floor to the next but moved with a quiet pride that stuck with her. You've been here a long time, Ivanka said during their 2 a.m. coffee break in the empty cafe area. Marco chuckled. Longer than most of the suits upstairs. I've seen him come and go. Even saw the president once. Back when he was just Mr. Trump. She smiled nervously. What's it been like working here all these years? Marco hesitated, then shrugged. Depends on the year. Back when the tower first opened, we had more respect. Better benefits, union reps, even holiday bonuses. Yeah? We're just numbers. Replaceable. No one checks in unless there's a scandal. He looked up and squinted at her face. You look familiar, you know that? Ivanka's breath caught in her throat. Oh, she said, feigning confusion. People say I look like that actress, Jessica Biel? Marco shook his head. Nah, you're prettier. But you got the same eyes as someone I saw in the lobby years ago. Never mind. I'm old. They both laughed, but the tension lingered. Later that night, she walked past the side entrance and noticed the security desk unmanned. Just as the guards had said, they were already reducing staff. For a property carrying the president's name, it was reckless. Worse, if something terrible happened, it wouldn't be the Trumps who suffered. It would be workers like Marco, Tammy, Raj. That morning, as the sun rose and she changed out of her dusty uniform, she caught her reflection in a supply closet mirror. She was bone-tired. Her eyes were puffy. Her nails chipped. And for the first time in years, she felt proud. This was real work. These were real people. But it wasn't just pride rising in her chest. It was fire. Something had to be done immediately. The next morning, she made a discreet call to Eric Trump, her brother, using a burner phone she'd purchased for the assignment. "Eric, don't say anything to Dad yet," she said. "But listen. I'm working undercover at the tower. And you wouldn't believe what I'm seeing. We've got problems." There was silence on the line. "You did what?" he finally said. "I'm not joking. I've been here a week. It's bad, Eric. And if we don't fix it from the inside, someone else will, with cameras and headlines." Another pause. "Okay," he said. "I trust you. What do you need?" She looked out at the tower from across the street, her reflection blending with its golden facade. "I need one more week. Then we go public. But not with PR. With action." What Ivanka didn't know was that by the end of that week, her secret wouldn't be a secret anymore. The final week was supposed to be low profile. Ivanka had planned to gather a few last insights, connect more deeply with the night crew, and exit without drama. But fate had other plans. On Wednesday night, the elevator jammed between floors 10 and 11. Ivanka and Marco were trapped inside with cleaning supplies, a flickering overhead light, and no air circulation. They pounded the emergency button. Nothing. "Cheap system," Marco muttered. "Maintenance has been begging for a budget to fix it for 2 years. Nobody listens." Ivanka took out her phone, but there was no signal. So they waited, in silence, until Marco spoke again. "You're not who you say you are." Ivanka's heart skipped. "Excuse me. You're not Aaron Wallace. You clean, but your hands aren't used to this. You walk like someone who used to wear heels. And you've been listening too closely." She exhaled slowly. The elevator still hadn't budged. "I can trust you, right?" she asked. Marco tilted his head, surprised by her calmness. "I've trusted this building with my life. If you're here to help us, then yes. You can trust me." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded ID, her real ID. Ivanka Trump. Marco stared at the name, then at her face. The dots connected. His mouth fell slightly open. "Madre de Dios," he whispered. "You're her." Ivanka nodded. "Why?" he asked, genuinely puzzled. "Because I didn't believe the numbers. I didn't believe what the media said about our workers being overworked and ignored. I wanted to see it with my own eyes." Marco just stared. "That's bold," he finally said. "And dangerous." Before Ivanka could reply, the elevator jolted. It creaked and groaned, and then it began to descend. They reached the basement and the doors creaked open. Waiting on the other side was Rick, arms folded and a suspicious expression on his face. "Where've you two been?" he barked. "Elevator jammed," Marco said flatly. Rick's eyes scanned Ivanka, sweat-drenched, serious-eyed, and paused. "You okay, Aaron?" She gave a small nod and walked away. But Rick kept watching. The next evening, things spiraled. A photo of Aaron appeared on a gossip blog. "Trump Tower mystery made, Secret Service caught following unidentified staffer." The photo was grainy, but the bone structure and eyes were unmistakable to those who knew. Within hours, the story went viral. Conspiracy channels, mainstream media, and Twitter/X exploded. Speculation ranged from Ivanka's in hiding to she's launching a TV show to she's replacing Gordon Ramsay in Undercover Boss, DC edition. By morning, she couldn't go back to the tower without blowing her cover entirely. So she didn't. Instead, she called a press conference as herself. Standing before dozens of reporters at a midtown venue, Ivanka looked confident, composed, and battle-worn. "Yes," she began, "I went undercover at Trump Tower. Not as a stunt. Not for television. But to listen to the people who make our brand possible. And what I saw, what I lived, was eye-opening." She listed every issue. Underpaid workers, cut security, broken infrastructure, toxic supervision, and lack of representation. Cameras flashed, reporters furiously typed. Some gasped when she cited first-hand examples. But more than that, she continued, "I met people with stories. People like Marco, who's worked here 20 years and never been thanked by name. People like Tammy, a single mom who hasn't had a raise in 4 years. And people like Raj, who risks injury every day just to keep the floors shining." Her voice cracked, but she held firm. That ends now. She announced a $10 million internal improvement initiative personally overseen by herself and her team dedicated to wage increases for floor-level workers, comprehensive building upgrades, a whistleblower hotline for abuse, leadership accountability and monthly staff feedback forums. And if that means shaking things up at the top, she said, then so be it. A hush swept over the room. Even the most skeptical reporters stared at her in stunned silence. She didn't look like a polished heiress anymore. She looked like someone who saw the Real America. In the days following Ivanka's bombshell press conference, Trump Tower was no longer just a Manhattan landmark. It had become the center of a national conversation. Headlines blared. Ivanka Trump exposes Trump Tower conditions. Workers praise undercover first daughter. Trump family civil war brewing? Her father, President Donald Trump, initially responded with public silence. But behind closed doors, reactions were mixed. Eric and Don Jr. were furious about the PR fallout, yet secretly impressed by her boldness. Melania reportedly supported her, as long as it wasn't another reality show. And Donald? According to White House insiders, the president paced his private quarters for hours before calling her. "You did what I couldn't," he finally said. "You reminded me what the Trump name is supposed to mean." That alone for Ivanka was worth the firestorm. Meanwhile, back at the tower, everything changed. It began with small victories. New gloves and shoes for janitorial staff. Health insurance workshops. HR surveys conducted anonymously. And then came the big moves. Rick, the supervisor who'd barked and bullied, was let go after multiple workers filed complaints many had been afraid to speak until now. He didn't go quietly, but few mourned his exit. Marco was promoted to Night Operations Liaison, a new position created specifically to give the night shift a voice. His limp hadn't gone away, but he walked with pride now, a walk that made other workers straighten up and smile. Tammy, the single mom, got the raise she deserved. She started an employer-run Facebook group to document changes, and within a week it had over 300 members. They posted photos of repaired bathrooms, newly painted halls, and most touchingly, notes of thanks. "Thank you, Ivanka," read one post it taped to a supply closet door. "Now we know you see us." The Trump organization quietly rolled out similar audits in other properties. Chicago, Vegas, and DC. It wasn't just about fixing one building anymore. It was a culture shift. News outlets tried to turn it political, but Ivanka refused to take the bait. "This isn't about left or right," she told CNN. "It's about what's right and what's wrong." At her father's next campaign rally, Ivanka stood behind the podium. The crowd erupted when he introduced her. "My daughter went undercover, folks, undercover. I didn't even know. And she did what so many politicians talk about but never do. She listened to the American worker. I'm proud of her." And the workers? They became celebrities in their own right. Marco appeared on Good Morning America. Tammy did an interview with The View. Raj was featured in People magazine alongside his shiny floors and that unmistakable gap-toothed smile. But perhaps the most powerful moment came one evening 2 weeks after the press conference. Ivanka returned to the tower, this time in a smart gray pantsuit and heels. She wasn't sneaking through the loading dock or scrubbing elevator buttons. She was there to attend the first official Trump Tower Employee Town Hall, a new monthly event she insisted on creating. As she stepped into the main ballroom, the entire crowd, janitors, maintenance, security, receptionists, rose and applauded. Loudly, unapologetically. Marco stood at the podium, adjusted the mic, and said, "We thought you were just another suit, but you came down to our level. And because of that, we rose up." Tears welled in Ivanka's eyes. Then, unexpectedly, Tammy's voice rang out from the back. "Speech! Speech! Laughter! Cheers! Chanting! Speech! Speech! Speech!" Ivanka took the stage again, but this time she didn't speak like an executive or a politician's daughter. She spoke as someone who had cleaned, mopped, and struggled beside them. "I came here thinking I could fix things," she said. "But really, you fixed me." Silence fell. Then thunderous applause. The journey had started as an undercover mission. But what emerged was something far deeper, a bridge between two worlds, between wealth and work, between golden elevators and greasy mop buckets, between perception and reality. And at the center of that bridge stood Ivanka Trump, no longer just the president's daughter. Now she was their voice,